everybody, welcome to this week's Roundup. We are about a month away from Retro World Expo, and I am very excited to be there once again and to meet as many of you as possible. I'll be announcing all the different cool stuff we'll be a part of and who'll be there over the next couple of weeks, with more of that later on in this episode, actually. But honestly, just come and hang out if you're available to. Please come over and say hi. I really just love hanging out with everybody, and there's going to be a bunch of awesome people hanging out at the booths, doing panels and everything else. The link to the website is going to be in the description, and I'll talk more about it later. So let's jump in and see what we got. First up, the company Arcooda has just opened pre-orders on their LCD-based arcade monitor replacement screens, and there are 4 different ones to choose from. Each are 4x3 and IPS-based, and they come in 2 sizes, either 26-inch or 35-inch, and each of those displays has 2 resolution choices, either 1440 by 1080 or 2880 by 2160, so essentially 4x3 versions of 1080p and 4K. Each of these have analog and digital inputs that will accept from 15 kilohertz all the way up to their native resolution, including 24 kilohertz and 31 kilohertz. And they will all have an updated version of the built-in sharp scaling that their previous models had. And while I haven't tested these personally yet, the previous 2 that I tested were by far the best LCD panels that I've seen to natively sharp scale retro signals. They really did an excellent job just trying to dial in a nearest neighbor scale to get yourself, not quite as good as an OSSC with optimal timings, but for something built in where you could just plug your stuff right into it, I thought it did an absolutely excellent job. You could also have an expansion board added to it that allows you to connect just the standard RGBS inputs that any arcade monitor would accept directly to this with nothing else, which kind of justifies the price depending on your setup. So I'll tell you the price, but stick with me afterwards because this may or may not be a good solution for you. But the prices range from $500 to $800, and they are due to ship to customers before the fall. Now, what they do and why they do it are really important to whether you even want to consider buying one of these. So if you're the type of person, like probably most of us, that would much rather prefer a CRT in your arcade machine, but what happens if something goes wrong with yours? I personally have lived through this, where maybe your chassis needs recapping, and then you find out it's not just recapping. You need a lot of other things. Maybe there's broken traces. Maybe there's something else that needs rewiring. Maybe your neck board's broken. Maybe you need a yoke adjustment. Maybe there's something wrong with the CRT itself. And I'm saying that to say that very often, repairing these things takes months or years, depending on how much time you have to spend and how rare the display or chassis that you're looking for actually is. So if you're the type of person that owns multiple displays, having an LCD replacement that you could always cycle through might actually be a perfect solution. Or maybe you've just thrown your hands up in the air and you've given up because you've just tried time and time again to keep your CRT running and it just doesn't work. And if that's the case, you could just bolt these in their place and have that little cheap add-on module so you could just wire RGBS. Now, of course, you could just grab a cheap 16:9 display, build a custom bezel, even out of cardboard or something, and kind of jimmy it into your arcade machine. But then how are you going to get the signal to it? You're going to need a super gun or some kind of solution to drop the voltage, and then you're going to need a scaler in order to get that in there. And then how are you going to wire up your control panel? So essentially, are you going to gut your arcade machine and rewire it all with a good quality super gun, a scaler, and a cheap 16:9 monitor? At that point, you're more than you are now for the cheaper versions of this, and you have something kind of rigged in there that doesn't look like it's supposed to be sitting in an arcade machine. Or you just plug this one in its place. So from that context, these things are very well priced and might be a perfect fit for you. But if you're the type of person that's like, I really just want a 4x3 display to build like a mini gaming station for my retro consoles, that's really got to be up to you. The fact that you could do something like plug a mister in and have it in 4x3 and have, your whole stuff built into it, maybe it's worth the price, maybe not. If you use a lot of original hardware, I really want to test these to see how well they work, but it could potentially be good enough. There's no scanline filters or anything like that on there, but if you're just looking to connect your displays and you want a good 4x3, or connect your consoles and you want a good 4x3 monitor, you could use something like a SCART cleaner to plug them directly in. Now, I tested their previous versions, and overall, I was really, really impressed. And my only complaints were things like some of the buttons didn't work as easily as you would have expected, and just little stuff. And Arcooda said that they've worked through a lot of that, and I'm really looking forward to trying these out because I think that for the arcade replacement side of things, it kind of speaks for itself. If you want an IPS replacement for your CRT, either temporarily or permanently or whatever else, these things are an excellent choice. But building your own mini arcade machine from scratch, when I say mini, I just mean you don't need a giant heavy thing that has to hold a CRT. You can make something a lot more compact that's still full sized. But is this for you? And is this something you would want on your retro consoles? And I'm not quite sure yet. It's really going to depend on how well it performs in each situation, what other things you're going to need to connect to it. But if you get deep pockets and you just want a really nice 4x3 4K monitor, maybe this is the one for you. I'm not really sure, but I did ask Arcooda if I could borrow 2 of the 26-inch versions, one of each resolution, kind of do another live stream and possibly a full video, but time is really something I'm lacking lately. So it would probably more like a couple of live streams with some good camera footage and really put it through its paces as hard as I could, and kind of go from there. So as an arcade machine replacement, this is definitely something I would consider as just like a console-based 4x3 monitor. I don't know yet, maybe, but we'll kind of see where it goes from there. One thing I will say is the announcements that they made in January are all kind of out the window. I did a post on that, I talked about it, and they're all because of stuff that was completely out of their control and kind of crazy. There was a flood in their office, there was entire shipments destroyed. Really, they've had the worst luck. But there were no pre-orders open for those. So that didn't hit the customer. It wasn't like customer stuff got destroyed. The only problem was that there were a ton of delays. So the pre-orders now are for the monitors that are in, they're ready. There's much less of a chance of crazy stuff going wrong. I have a video embedded in the post that they put up that kind of shows the overview of this, as well as some of the crazy stuff that happened at their office. And I'm genuinely just looking forward to testing them and seeing where they fall as recommendations for people that just want to build gaming setups. I know for me personally, I had such bad luck with my arcade machines over the years. I really want a CRT-based arcade machine, but if I could have something like this where I could build onto something that looks and feels like an arcade machine, but I could just spin it around so I never have to worry about arcade game orientation, I could either spin it left or right or back centered, then I think this might be a pretty good choice for me until I could figure out a more reliable way to have an arcade setup. Because while I can do a lot of this work, I am just not on the level of my friends. So something that they could come in a couple of hours, punch out a repair and have it working perfectly might take me a whole day, and I still might have to take it apart and bring it to them to help. So I definitely see where LCD-based arcade monitors have a need, and Arcooda really is trying to do it right. So check out the post and the links for more info. Next up, DF Retro just did a review of Gradius Origins, which is a compilation game with a bunch of the different Gradius or in the Gradius universe games. There's actually a whole bunch. I copied and pasted a screenshot of their website if you want to know exactly which ones are in there and which versions, because that's also kind of a big deal. Some of them have the Japanese, North American, and European versions. Some have the arcade versions and the console versions. There's a ton of these to go through. And basically, they all perform exactly as you would have hoped them to, and they all are great versions of it on modern platforms. There's also another game called Salamander 3 that's a brand new game, and it's, according to John, a really great one in the series. It really feels like it fits along with the other ones, and something that you could really enjoy if you're into these style games. The only complaints I have is I generally don't pre-order stuff that I don't know that I would love until some kind of reviews like this are out. So there are some games where I'm like, you know what, even if it stinks, I definitely want this one. But others I'm like, let me just hold off and see. Maybe I'd be better off getting the originals. I'll figure it out. So I watched this video and thought, that's really cool. Let me pick up the Switch version, and at the very least, I could play Salamander 3 and probably try to figure out how to play it on a CRT as well. And then I realized they're all sold out. So I kind of get it. I understand how these companies who make physical versions of games are very limited in what they could do, but I don't know. I just felt like I'm just tired of seeing a game out of stock before it even hits the digital stores. And I'm not talking about special editions. That part I get. You have to make a limited edition or a limited amount of the limited editions because you don't want to dump thousands and thousands of dollars into something and have not everybody buy it. But just the regular games, you got to save enough for launch day too. So that was really frustrating, but whatever. I guess I'll wait and see if this is something I feel like picking up on digital, but if nothing else, it seemed like worth the price just to play Salamander 3 and a couple of the weird versions of the other ones that I never really tried or didn't even know some of them existed. Also, I just updated the post because the Pixelacos YouTube channel posted their review. And if you're not aware of that channel, they basically do frame rate analysis of a ton of new games. And this one seemed like it performed great for every version that was emulated on here, which is awesome. But that's the type of YouTube channel that I'm subscribed to, and all the time I'll just check out their videos and kind of scroll through and figure out which games are good and which ones are terrible. And there are a few that are just not even worth buying, but I wanted to shout them out as well because they did a great analysis of it. So I would suggest checking that out as well as John's video if you want more info on this. Now it's time for this week's Mr. Updates, care of Lou from Lou's Retro Source. As usual, I'm going to skim through these and just give my thoughts where I feel like it, but if you want all of the details as well as visual examples, please check out Lou's video. First up, Taki posted an update on the Superstation 1 that talks about the system loading PlayStation games directly from disk instead of dumping the disk first and then running the game, which I always thought was respectfully ridiculous. That's what, software emulation consoles do. If you're going to try to make a PlayStation replacement console, why not make it actually load discs? And that's exactly what they accomplished. And not only that, they showed other CD-based consoles running on it as well. Sega CD, Saturn, and PC Engine CD games. So that's awesome. That's a huge shout out to Taki and whoever is working on it with them for getting it working. And you do need to buy the CD add-on module in order to do that. But I think that's fine as well because not everybody's going to want CD support. So maybe the price lines up. I personally would have liked it with it all built in, looking like a PS1, the little white miniature PlayStation consoles. But whatever, I get it. That's pretty cool. So hopefully this will all be ready by the expected launch date of by the end of the year. But we've got a couple more months to see. Next, there's a Mr. Tip. If you have it connected to a CRT over composite or an S-video and some cores are outputting black and white, there's actually a way to fix many of these. And there's a post on the forum that was just a great reminder of how exactly to do that. You basically have to enable the YC cores option in the update all script, which will download additional cores that let you enable the YC output. So that's always a great tip to have as well. Next, the Mr. Multisystem 2 showed the team behind it showed a video of them running cartridges on the game console, which was pretty cool. They had support for Game Boy Color, and I think they talked about potentially having other stuff as well. And this is not dumping the ROM like software-based stuff. This is actually an adapter that would allow you to plug in real Game Boy Color cartridges and run them right off of it, kind of like the analog consoles do. So I think that is awesome. I mean, I think the things that are the steps that are missing for Mr. to be a bit more mainstream are just being able to use your original cartridges and having it look a little bit more like a console and less like a science project, which is not throwing shade at the Mr. team. They're trying to work with the DE10 Nano, so there's no other way around that. But that's kind of what the Multisystem 2 is trying to accomplish here. It looks like a console, and now they're showing at least potential ways of doing it, proof of concept. So hopefully when these come in, I'll be able to do a live stream and check one out, and hopefully I'll be able to figure out some, or maybe even borrow some of these adapters to show actual original cartridges running on it. Next, I Am Teddy forked the SNES core so that certain ROM hacks will run better. And the purpose of this is not more accuracy, it's the opposite. It's kind of hacking up the SNES core so that more ROM hacks would be able to run on it the same way they run on software emulators. So I think that is a perfect way of getting around doing that. And I think it's really cool for people that want to play certain ROM hacks that rely on that stuff. Next up, a new Star Force core is available by developer Madoff, and Star Force is also known as Megaforce, and it's a vertically scrolling space shooter, which I'm always interested in seeing new ones of those that I've missed over the years. It could also play a couple of different games and a side-scrolling platformer where you collect all of the treasure before advancing to the next level. Next, Martin Donlin recently released a test build that adds 2 new games to the Taito F2 core, and it's Metal Black, which is a side-scrolling shooter, and Dead Connection, which is a single-screen run-and-gun game. The Coin Op Collection team released Air Gallet for the Mister, which is another vertically scrolling shooter developed by Gazelle and based on Cave hardware. So if you like the Cave-style shooters, definitely check this one out. And there were also a couple of updates for the Joust 2 core, as well as the arcade database for anybody that uses Update All and wants to sort that stuff as well. So as always, thanks so much to Lou for keeping up for this stuff. There's no way I could do it without him, and I'm really, really appreciative to have these posts on RetroRGB. But as always, just subscribe to Lou on YouTube. It's free, so why not? You get all the long versions of this with a lot more details than I go through. And if you rely on Lou's work as much as I do, consider supporting on Patreon. Next up, the original MemCard Pro is now in stock and ready to ship at $28 each, which is an awesome price. There are 6 different colors to choose from, and this is the latest hardware revision of the original MemCard Pro. So you get things like PS2 saves mostly work as long as you're using a fast enough SD card, and you could also use it as a Bluetooth controller receiver on the PlayStation 1, and it will allow you to launch games on the PS2 using MMCE. Now, whether you want to buy this or the PlayStation 2 inherent version, the MemCard Pro 2, really comes down to what features you're looking for and how many of these you have, and of course, price, because $28 is an awesome price. I put a screenshot of the comparison between what the MemCard Pro 1 and 2 could do in the post right here. So if you're wondering, that's a good thing to reference. I did a screenshot because I really wish I had done this before when the MemCard Pro 2 was first released, because I could have referenced it here to show you how much of that functionality was backported to the original MemCard Pro completely for free. The only downside for that is if you have the very early hardware revision, a lot of those features won't work, but this is, once again, the latest revision. So for me personally, I thought it was worth the extra money to pick up the MemCard Pro 2. I actually still have mine sitting right here because I keep meaning to update it and everything. The bigger screen is cool, but some of the other functionality I thought was worth it to me. However, what if you needed 2 memory cards? You certainly wouldn't need 2 super fully functional ones. You can grab the MemCard Pro 2 and the MemCard Pro 1. Or what if you just want to play PlayStation 1? You don't really play PS2 as much. Or you want one dedicated for each console. You want the MemCard Pro on your PS1 and the MemCard Pro 2 for your PS2. So there's tons of reasons why I think it's a great idea that 8-Bit Mods made another run of these. The $28 price point is definitely top of the list, though. So if you're looking for these, check out the link right here. You can choose any of the 6 different colors, and I just think it's awesome that you have a choice now, and maybe you don't need to spend the extra money for whatever reason on the MemCard Pro 2. Stone Age Gamer has a bunch of those awesome Neo Geo Homebrew games in stock and ready to ship. No pre-orders or anything. And the games are Xenocrisis, Captain Barrel, Project Neon, and Cyborg Force. All of these games are AES cartridges except Project Neon, which has both AES and MVS versions in stock, and all of them are complete in-box versions. So basically, if you're a fan of owning original Neo Geo Homebrew and you want these games, now's probably the time to jump on them, because when they go out of stock, very often they go out of stock for a long time. Now, of course, because they're Neo Geo games, they require 2 PCBs and a ton of hardware in them, so prices range from $450 to $500. Totally expensive, but definitely keep in mind that that's not overpriced. That's 2 wildly different terms. Yeah, that's very expensive. If you have Neo Geo ROM carts, you could buy the ROM for some of these. I'm not sure about all of them, but definitely for some. And that might just be better for you overall. But you get what you pay for. You have a complete in-box version of something that costs a ton of money to manufacture, not to mention just what it costs to make these games. But I guess I'm kind of preaching to the choir here. If you're already a Neo Geo collector, you're kind of laughing at those prices because you've probably paid a lot more for games that you may or may not like as much as these. But if you're somebody that's used to getting like a sub $100 new Sega Genesis game, it probably seems, a little bit too expensive, if not a lot too expensive. And both are totally fair opinions. I just want to talk about these things if anybody's interested in them. And I just want to get the word out, because while some people are rolling their eyes at the price, there's a bunch of other people listening going, I missed Xenocrisis last time, or I didn't pick up Cyborg Force and that looks awesome. That looks like a new Metal Slug game. So Links for here, everything are right here in the post to each of the versions. Check it out if you're interested. Tito from Macho Nacho Productions recently posted a video showcasing TV tuners for classic handheld consoles, and it was a great video. I didn't even know a lot of these existed. The Game Gear one is obviously something that I've wanted my whole life, and I just did that live stream about. And I vaguely remembered the PC Engine Express, Turbo Express having one as well, but I didn't realize there were ones for the Game Boy Advance, the Nintendo DS, and the PSP. And this video kind of went through all of them and showed you how they worked and what it would have been like to try to set those up. And I just thought it was an awesome video, and I wanted to talk a little bit more about a couple of things here. First, I put links to all of the different versions in here in case you're interested, because why not, right? And they're all affiliate links, so if you're going to buy them anyway, why not get me 3 or 4 pennies on the sale? Call that what you will. But the other thing I just wanted to mention is Tito's method of hooking up a basic antenna to a generic HDMI to RF converter was the perfect way to shoot this video, but it is not what you would want to do at home. So I'm not throwing shade. I would have done the same thing if I were him. But if you're trying to broadcast RF video, you're going to want a wireless RF transmitter that's dedicated directly for this. You could spend quite a bit of money on getting a more powerful amp and a decent antenna, or you can get a cheap one that was like $30 shipped from AliExpress. That's fine. And it always goes to say that if you're in a big city, RF is not going to be for you, especially wireless RF. But if you're out in the middle of nowhere, or if you're in the burbs, it should be fine. And you should be able to do something like distribute wireless RF to CRTs you have around your house just to watch TV that way, or maybe even play games that way. But I'm actually going to be doing a video about just that because I got really into it. I've been bothering Selena because she does the same thing and trying to get tips from her. And I want to do a video that, is not like Tito's, but definitely shows you how to basically play TV shows over RF via wireless or wired for people that just have basic CRTs. And of course, I'm going to be showing the Game Gear in it because why not, right? But if you have any questions about that, please let me know. Now, I just want to say that this is not going to be some kind of, hardcore gaming downscaler video. Marco already has that covered and does an amazing job with it. It's going to be the opposite. I'm looking to do a very basic, how could I just take any CRT that I find laying on the side of the road and connect modern consoles or modern streaming boxes to it just to kind of utilize my CRT, even if it isn't the best solution, it's just a cheap but fine way of going about doing it. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I always take notes, and then when I do these videos, I kind of go back and reference that to see if I'm missing anything. But this is going to be a fun one, a fun and silly one where you don't have to spend much money. Basically, if you find a CRT, you just have to buy the cheaper converters and some cable, which if you're old, you probably have coax cable laying around anyway. So any questions you have, let me know. But honestly, check out Tito's video because it was really cool seeing this stuff in action. And I'm going to be looking forward to just broadcasting a TV show to a CRT somewhere else in my house just for the heck of it. There's also another fun use case that I'm going to try to get footage of for the end of that video, which I don't want to spoil, but it's going to be a fun one for people that love the silliness of this stuff. Reese just posted a review of the new Atari 2600 Plus Pac-Man Edition consoles, which are newer versions of the 2600 Plus that have a Pac-Man themed color scheme, and there's also a choice of 5 different controllers, each with their own color scheme as well. So to back up for a moment, a couple of years ago, Atari released an official reissue of the 2600 they called the Plus with an HDMI output that played original cartridges. And then a while back, maybe a year ago or so, they released the 7800 Plus with an updated board and more features that played both styles of cartridges. And this is going back to the original look and feel of the 2600 Plus, but it has a new color scheme and an updated motherboard that puts the hardware in line with the 7800 Plus version. And that also includes an important update that supports driving and paddle controller games, which I guess the original 2600 Plus didn't support. So the games would play, but the controllers weren't supported over that. So these new additions have that new hardware as well as the different color schemes, and it starts at $170, and you could get different bundles available with different classic games, with different controllers, including one that's like $435 that also includes all 5 different Ghost-themed joysticks. And there's also new wireless controllers as well. So overall, this is just something where if you're looking for an easy way to play original Atari 2600 consoles on a flat panel, it's absolutely worth considering. It's a brand new console, just plug and play, and this one certainly looks cool. So if you're looking for a bright yellow Atari 2600, this one might be a fun one, but check out Reese's review if you want all of the details and exactly which of these may or may not be for you, if you want just one of the controllers, etc., etc. Reese has you covered. Ken from What's Ken Making recently posted a video showing how classic handheld screens worked. And Ken went back to the beginning with some of the earliest handheld gaming consoles ever, and then focused in on the Game Boy, and both how it works as well as how some of these screen replacement mods work and how they're able to read the signals from the Game Boy and generate an image based on them. And while Ken gets a little technical, this is definitely a video anybody can enjoy and understand with just a little bit of patience. And I thought it was really cool seeing a technical side of how that stuff worked, and also how these modern replacement screens are able to grab that signal and then display it on a newer screen. So this is definitely something that I think you'd enjoy, and it's especially a video I think you'd enjoy if you're going to be doing that workshop with Ken and Tito at Retro World Expo, where you're going to be able to bring your own Game Boy Advance, and then they're going to supply the mod kit and the screen for you to mod it with a brand new replacement screen. I talked about that before, but that's something that I think that anybody who's a fan of this stuff that was maybe a little apprehensive to get started on their own would be really interested in. Because I know so many people out there that are just like, I'm not really great at soldering. I've never done that before. I don't want to take a chance. Well, now is the perfect time to take that chance. Just bring a Game Boy Advance. Even if the screen is dead, that's fine. You're putting a new one in there as long as it works otherwise. So power it on, and if you could hear a sound, it's probably going to be fine. And you'll be able to do this workshop at Retro World and be able to work with Tito and Ken to mod your own, and you'll walk out of there with an awesome modded Game Boy Advance. So if you want one of those, links are right here in the description, just at the bottom of the video. And it's something that I really hope any handheld fan that has been looking to do this would consider, because it's just not very often you get a chance to do that stuff with the people that are really experts at doing exactly that. So please check out Ken's post, both for that awesome video and if you want more details and links to how to sign up for this workshop and be a part of this at Retro World in September. Well, that's it for this week. I've been working on a bunch of content that I was hoping to have come out in the next week or two, but I actually ended up getting sick last week, which I know, how weird is that, right? It's beautiful weather out in the Northeast in the summer. Like, how the heck is somebody getting sick in that? But I always get bad luck. There's always once a summer, I always have something like that happen. So I'm not sure if next week is going to be a little bit lighter. Hopefully I'll be able to catch up and at least get enough posts in. But if next week's roundup's a little light, my apologies in advance, but I'm scrambling to try to catch up and jump back into working on some of that really fun stuff I've been working on. But anyway, as always, thank you so much to everybody who watches, listens, plays nicely in the comments, and especially thank you to anybody who supports in absolutely any way at all, because it really is you who's keeping all this stuff going. So thank you all very much, and I'll see you next week. This week's Roundup is brought to you by Neo Paradigm Entertainment, connecting Southeast Asian influencers with opportunities in the West.